son Matthew was diagnosed with chronic dyslexia. There was some kind of figure thrown about that he was 95% dyslexic. He couldn't do anything, and there was no hope for him. And so one of the things that I remember was when Paul noticed it when Matthew wrote his name on the snow, and Paul said you could hold a mirror up to it. It was completely the opposite way around. So that's just the way. But in Robert's world, he's doing it perfectly. Whatever way he's doing it perfectly for him. Because of that, Paul said, I'm going to ring Robert Smith. I'm going to call Robert Smith. And so that's what he did, and made the call. And Robert said, ask Matthew. Matthew is 9, I think, 8 or 9. And ask him why he doesn't want to go to school. And I remember, Tracy saying, my sister-in-law saying, how would you find 100 ways of why you don't want to go to school? But because they were desperate enough, they did what they were told. And they asked the child, and the child gave them 100 reasons in 20 minutes. He didn't like putting on his socks, he didn't like putting on his shoes, because he knew when he was putting on his shoes he had to go to school. And the whole ritual of getting ready to go to school was all the reasons that he didn't want to go. So they got their list, and they went up on a Sunday afternoon up to the shop, and it was a big, big thing, I remember it. And because they were, Paul, my brother, was very emotional, and you're putting your child, you're risking some guy over on the other side of the world, and you've never met him, and your child is your most precious thing. So anyway, they went through it, thank God. And Tracy was in the office with Matthew, and they had the phone on hands-free, and the child was sitting there, and Tracy was doing what Robert was, she was tapping, and Paul was outside the office, totally traumatised. He couldn't cope with it at all. But anyway, they did it, and I remember Tracy telling me she was apologising to Robert because, it wasn't working, because Matthew was resisting it. He didn't want to do it, and Robert said, keep going, he's taking care of himself. This has been protecting him all this time, so don't worry about it. So they persisted, and eventually Matthew broke, and they got through. And this is how Tracy described it to me. Matthew was exhausted. They took him home and he just slept. But the next day he wanted to go to school. In that week it just got better and better, and he was, getting ready to go to school, and he was fine, and he was going to school. So over the weeks and months then, Matthew started getting better and better and better. And this is a guy, they said he was 95% dyslexic, that he couldn't do anything. And he wasn't going to be able, this was a life sentence. And I remember feeling, the pain of my brother. My brother is slightly dyslexic, and I know, my stuff, it's all out of the same house. And the helplessness that he felt because his child was going to have to go through the rest of his life with this sentence. And so then the changes started coming, and Matthew started getting better and better and better. So then Matthew was tapping in school, and he was just, this wee guy's telling me, I tap, and I thought, I better find out more about this. Matthew's life has improved a lot. One of the things that one of the side effects was that Matthew wouldn't go out to play. He couldn't go out to play because he had such problems. And this was one of the places that they noticed the change, that Matthew, as soon as he got in from school, he was up and out to play with the children outside. So the impact was huge,